1974. I think I already did a 1974 video, but it would have been early in 2024 when I was ambitious about doing these year ending in number lists. But I'll try to find that and put it in the description below in case you're interested in seeing that, seeing how many things I overlapped between the two lists. But let's get started. 1974, Nixon resigns. That would be the big news from that year after the whole Watergate thing from the last 2 years before that. So that was kind of a big deal. I don't think we've ever had a president quit. But, yeah, he needed to go anyway. The rumble in the jungle in Zaire, Muhammad Ali and George Foreman battled it out. And that's how much I know about sports. I don't even know who won. I'm sure Muhammad Ali won, right? But it definitely made George Foreman famous, and I think he became the heavyweight champion in the next year, couple years or something. I'm not sure. I don't know how all that works. We also had Evel Knievel doing the Snake River Canyon jump and not quite making it. It's a weird time to be alive when there was like real life daredevils out there trying to jump over shit, and I guess we still have people like base jumping and buildering and doing all of that. What's that stuff called? Parkour and all that. But the most famous daredevil of all time, as far as I know, is Evel Knievel, and I think his success rate of his stunts has got to be very low. I think he wrecked almost every trick he tried to perform, but for some reason in the 70s, he was just an icon. I loved him. I had the little toy that you put the motorcycle up on the thing and you wind it up and then you hit the thing and he takes off and jumps whatever you want to do. I wish I had that thing now. My God, I wonder how much one of those goes for. There was also a super outbreak of tornadoes in April of 1974 that spread across 13 states and leaving 319 people dead. The 55-mile-an-hour speed limit is instituted. Is that the right word? They thought to try to keep energy costs down because we were in the oil embargo, the energy crisis in the 70s. The Heimlich maneuver is first published, which I think is weird because I grew up my whole life learning how to do that, and I just thought it was a thing that had been around for 100 years. Like, that seems like a 1850s kind of cure for things, but that's a weird situation because I think he was kind of Heimlich himself was kind of a not very good person, and he didn't just release this Heimlich maneuver to the public to save lives. He was real strict on publishing rights, and anybody wanted to publish it in their like first aid book or whatever, he wanted paid for that. So it was a lot of controversy involved in that, in all of that. Controversy involved in all of that, but yeah. People magazine was first published, and trivia for anybody that likes trivia. The first person on the cover of People magazine was Mia Farrow. Carrie, Stephen King's first novel, is first published. And 50 years, 51, 52 years down the road from that, the guy who signed that publishing deal has got to feel like what it felt like to sign the Beatles or something. I mean, Stephen King has got to be one of the most prolific authors of all time. And that's what kicked it off, 1974. I don't know how old I thought that guy was, but like I said, the time period, he's been around my whole life. So there's always been a Stephen King out there as far as I'm concerned. Meow Mix, Dayquil, which is kind of weird because 1974 seems a little early for Dayquil. I would, on one hand, I kind of think that that seems like a NyQuil kind of thing, but then on the other hand, NyQuil kind of seems like one of those turn of the century kind of cures, like it probably had morphine in it when it first came out or something. Came in glass bottles or whatever. The Rubik's Cube is first invented in 1974, which seems a little early for that for me too, because that seemed like an 80s thing. That's definitely became a trend sometime in the 80s. Sometime I'll show you our Rubik's Cube collection, Rubik's snakes and the Rubik's, all of the different variations. That stuff might have got lost in the purge, so I don't know if we still have all of those Rubik's Cubes or not. But Bailey's Irish Cream. Now, doesn't that one seem weird? Doesn't that seem like something that's been around for 100 years too? But no, first, I almost said printed. What do you do with first brewed, I guess? First Bailey's Irish Cream was 1974. Also Connect 4, pretty sneaky sis. That was a thing. I never had that game. I love that game, but we had a lot of weird stuff like that through the 80s. But I don't think we ever had a Connect 4. Rest in peace to Charles Lindbergh. He was kind of a bad person, but good person too. So, yeah, bad person does good things. Separate the art from the artist, all that. Mama Cass dies in Harry Nielsen's flat, I guess you would say, since it was in England. And coincidentally, would be the same apartment that Keith Moon of The Who would die in just a few years later. So I was going to make a video, eventually I'll make a video about the whole Harry Nielsen death house thing. Oskar Schindler passes away in 1974. Also Duke Ellington, probably one of the most prolific jazz musicians of all time, passes away in 1974. And Nick Drake. Nick Drake was a forgotten, I guess you could say, folky musician that never got his flowers in his lifetime. And just recently, in the last few years, people are starting to become more aware of who he was. And my dad was telling me about an album that he found that just seemed like a normal album, and looked it up, and it was worth hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I immediately knew it was Nick Drake, and he was just confused of why somebody like that's records would be so valuable. And it's because nobody bought it, so there was none out there. And now that he's becoming more successful in his posthumous life cycle, it's becoming more valuable. So that's how that works. Karen Silkwood dies, which would turn into a movie in the early 80s with Cher and Meryl Streep playing Karen Silkwood. She was the person that got the cancer from the radiation from working at a radiation plant. I don't really know a lot about it, but it was a big controversy in the 70s. And Ed Sullivan passes away. I'm not sure if he did his show right up until the end, but he had a good run. For somebody that really didn't have any talent, whenever I think I'm not very good at this, talking to the camera and reciting facts and introducing things, I just think how untalented Ed Sullivan was. But he picked performers for his show like a genius. So that was his contribution to history. My screen went dark. Another thing I want to talk about that happened in 1974 that I didn't know about, and I'm pretty sure I didn't know about it when I made the other 1974 video, so it's definitely not going to be in there. There was a girl named Kristen Chubbuck that worked at a little public access television station in Florida, and in 1974 she went on the air and became the first live suicide on television. She pulled out a gun and put it right behind her ear and pulled the trigger, and supposedly that footage was destroyed. You can still find videos on YouTube that play the audio of it, and it was kind of before anybody had VCR, so there really wouldn't have been anybody filming it or taping it from home. But apparently there was 2 movies made about Kristen Chubbuck in 2016, of all things. They always do those parallel movies. But Kate plays Christine. Is, I think, more about making a movie about that. And there was another one just called Christine with Rebecca Hall playing Christine, and also starred Michael C. Hall from Dexter fame. So in 1974, a 19-inch color television was $450. And I didn't adjust that for inflation, but I think it would be about around $2,000 or $3,000 now for a 19-inch television. 19-inch television is about that big, because it's like they measure across the screen. So 19-inch television is about just tiny. Speaking of television, there was some television movies that I came across in my research for this stuff. And one was called Death Cruise. And if you adjust your expectation to the fact that it was a TV movie, it actually is pretty good. It's kind of like a Murder on the Orient Express type of deal, crossed with Love Boat. These couples go on this cruise that they've been invited on, and they're all trying to figure out why they know who they know the same that could have invited them on this cruise, and then slowly they start dying one by one. And it stars Tom Bosley, who that same year or maybe the next year would be TV dad, Mr. Cunningham, on Happy Days. And the only other famous person that I recognized in that movie was Kate Jackson, who would become a Charlie's Angel within the next year or two. There was another movie called The California Kid that kind of had a couple of hot rods in it, and it starred Charlie Sheen, not Charlie Sheen, not 1974. It was Martin Sheen, and he was young. He looks exactly like Emilio Estevez. He looks like Emilio Estevez with Charlie Sheen's face in that movie. He's real young, 1974. And it also starred Vic Morrow, who would be the guy that would die in that tragic helicopter accident while they were filming the movie Twilight Zone in like 1982, 83 maybe. But it was about this small town outside of California, maybe in Nevada or somewhere in the wilderness in California, where they had this curve, like a dead man's curve, and when the hippies would roll through town, they would just, the cop, Vic Morrow's the cop, and he would just basically run cars off the road at that, and then just blame it on that dead man's curve. And so Charlie Sheen brings his hot rod. It's kind of like ZZ Top kind of hot rod, 33, 34, something or other, with flames painted on the side. And he comes out and he keeps running that dead man's curve until he nailed it to where he doesn't fly off the cliff. And then he gets the cop to chase him, and of course the cop, spoilers, the cop eats it on the curve. But it was slightly entertaining. Once again, adjusted your entertainment value to that this was on television and that it's 52 years old. And the last one is a controversial one. It was called Born Innocent, and it starred Linda Blair, fresh off of her Exorcist fame. And I can't not believe that this was a television movie, because it had explicit scenes about rape and child abuse and child rape, and there is an real explicit sex scene. Not sex, it's a rape scene. Grape scene. I guess I'm supposed to use algo talk now because I don't want to get my video shadow banned by using the R word. So it's grape. There was a lot of short-lived television shows in '74. I don't know what was going on. There was a lot of stuff that became iconic, but there was a lot of short-lived shows too. Monty Python had a short-lived show on U.S. television. Of course, they had a long-running show on British television, but they had one here, and I guess maybe they were just a little too esoteric for the American audiences. Maybe they were just a little too British for American audiences. And I want to say that this is the same year, maybe 75, when John Cleese did the Fawlty Towers TV series, and that is super highly acclaimed. But the Smothers Brothers also had a short-lived variety show like they had in the 60s, but now updated for the 70s. And I remember watching, they also had a short series in the 80s sometime, maybe 90s sometime, I think. I watched it with my dad. We watched it here, so it would have definitely been after 90, because we bought this house in 90. So Smothers Brothers. Sonny and Cher had gotten divorced, And they gave Sonny a comedy review television show. It only lasted 12 episodes. Wonder Woman. You may think Wonder Woman, you may think Linda Carter, and that wasn't until 1975. In 1974, there was a completely different Wonder Woman, completely different costume, completely different setup, and it was Kathy Lee Crosby was Wonder Woman. And I always thought she was gorgeous when I was younger. She was on a couple of shows. I think she was on a show called That's Incredible, where she was one of the hosts. But there was a show called Texas Wheelers that starred Jack Elam. He's a guy you always see in all those old westerns. He's the western guy. And this looks like a western, but it was notable to me because one thing, they used the song Illegal Smile by John Prine as the theme song, and I just think that's funny because that song is about smoking the ganja, and it was the theme song to a network television show. But the other thing that I found that show notable for was because it starred a very, very young Mark Hamill, way before Star Wars, and also a young Gary Busey. I think they're brothers in this show, and I thought that was funny. Speaking of Evel Knievel, there was a short-lived, one season I think, I don't know how many episodes, but Sam Elliott plays Evel Knievel, and it's kind of like a fictional version of the real Evel Knievel, and he moves, I don't know, he solves crime in this small town that he got stranded in or something or other. I don't know. I think I watched the pilot, but I don't even remember it. But it's funny seeing Sam Elliott at like whatever age he would have been, 20 something, and no mustache. And I was like, Sam Elliott. And then he starts talking, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's Sam Elliott. Yeah. There was a show called Newland that starred a very young Kurt Russell, which, if you didn't know, Kurt Russell was a child star in all those silly Disney movies in the 60s and stuff. So it's not, wasn't uncommon to see him pop up on some shows and what have you. There was a show called Nakia with Robert Forster, who just passed away a few years ago. Sierra, Kodiak. There was a lot of these getting back to rugged country. I don't know what the trend with that was, but there was just a lot of these. They weren't westerns, and they're set in modern day society, but it's always about some like guy that's a forest manager, or maybe even just a loner that goes out and lives in the woods. And it's just, there was just a slew of those at that time. So weird. There was also a short-lived Planet of the Apes TV show that also starred Roddy McDowall, who was in all of the Planet of the Apes movies. Apparently it did not translate to television as well as it did in the movies. And I'm not even sure how well those movies stand up. That's not my general wheelhouse, so I've barely seen any of those old Planet of the Apes movies. But there was a Paper Moon television show that, if you don't know, Paper Moon was a movie right in there, 73, 74, that Tatum O'Neal had won an Oscar for, and it was set in the Great Depression, and it's a lot of the outside scenes that film has always been in my consciousness because a lot of the outside scenes were filmed in and around this town right here, and you can find some of the spots downtown where there's significant scenes that were filmed there, but they tried to turn it into a television show, and the girl that was played in the movie by Tatum O'Neal is played by Jodie Foster. And it's weird because it's the year before Taxi Driver and what have you, so just trying to find her way. I don't know how fun it would have been. I guess it was just kind of a throwback thing. There was a lot of movies that were set in the Great Depression and the 30s and 40s and stuff through the 70s. I don't know why that was. It's weird though because that's like the throwback to from 74 to the Great Depression. It was kind of be like us making a movie or a TV show about 1985. So that's time keeps on into the future. So not only was there the trend of the rugged men getting back to the rugged nature, there was also the women's liberation. This is the first year that women were allowed to get a credit card in their own name or have a bank account without their husband signing for it. And so you started seeing a lot more independent women, and that translates to the entertainment. So there was a lot of television shows like Policewoman with Angie Dickinson, and $6 Million Man is not a woman. I jumped ahead on my list there. Jessica Walter plays Amy Prentice in a short-lived television show, and my goodness, she was a cutie. I think of Jessica Walter as the mom on Arrested Development and on Archer, but woo, back in the day, she was a smoke show. Rest in peace. She just passed away in the last year or two. There was Rhoda, which was a spin-off of Mary Tyler Moore and starred Valerie Harper, which is always confusing to me because I always got Valerie Harper confused with that lady that was in Alice, Linda something. She just passed away a year or two ago too. I forgot her last name. Sorry. Anyway, on to other shows that were big in 1974. The $6 Million Man, like I said a minute ago. The Rockford Files, and that theme actually charted. It was written by Mike Post, and that synth line in there is just sick as shit. Oh man, what a good song. I had that on my list for a long time. Little House on the Prairie, once again, a throwback to not quite a Western, but goes back to the olden days. Just nothing is more unappealing to me than that time period. I could never watch Little House on the Prairie. My grandma always watched that, and it was young me was just bored to tears. I hated that show. Apparently there was another show called Harry O that, here's a weird coincidence, starred a guy named David Jansen, who in the 60s played the fugitive. Well, also in this Harry O show is a girl named Ann Archer, who plays Harrison Ford's wife in the movie The Fugitive 20 years later. So that just, that kind of stuff blows my mind. I know it's not that interesting, but it blows my mind. That show also starred a real young Linda Evans. I always think of Linda Evans as the still young enough to be pretty, but not quite grandma age. But she was in Dallas or Dynasty. I get them confused. She was in one of those. I think she was in Dynasty. But here she is 20 years younger, 10 years, 15 years younger, and 10 years younger. And she's a smoke show. You also had weird twin type of shows. I guess they're not really the same, but just on the surface they kind of appear the same. Sanford and Son was great. Man, I watched Sanford and Son over and over and over again, and I had no idea when I was a kid that Red Fox was such a like foul-mouthed comedian. It's kind of like the whole Bob Saget thing from Full House, and then his stand-up is just the most vulgar comedy that you could ever think of. And Red Fox did a bunch of stag records in the 60s, I guess. Yeah, 60s. And they went on to be just a family, like, not family, but more primetime dad. I just thought that show was hilarious. The one that I never saw very much that was real similar to it was Chico and the Man. And that starred Jack Albertson, who was the grandpa from Willy Wonka a couple of years before, and Freddie Prinze, who was Freddie Prinze Jr.'s dad, obviously. And that freaks me out because Freddie Prinze Jr. to me seems like the whitest all-American boy ever, and his dad was like Mexican, or I think he was Mexican. God, I'm so racist. I don't want to be racist. I'm not racist. I just don't know things all the way. But he was supposedly one of the funniest people ever, and it's just sad that he passed away so young. You also had Happy Days. I guess I was right about that. Happy Days was that same year. Columbo was never a regular series, but I think this is their 4th season in 5 years, 6 years. I think it started in 1969. But I love Columbo. Peter Falk is so funny. And that show is always set up, even when they did it all the way up into the 90s, he would have Columbo shows. And he would just annoy the shit out of people just so much until they would just admit to whatever he was trying to get him to admit to. And the other neat thing about the Columbo shows is they always set them up to where you saw the crime right in the beginning, and you saw who did it, and you saw how it was done, and so there was no mystery. The whole mystery was you figuring out how Columbo was going to figure out how this was done. And I just thought that's always been just an interesting premise, to just give everything to the audience and then still have them be so engaged to find out the reveal at the end. And it's not even the reveal. You're not even trying to solve the mystery because you get the mystery all right at the beginning. All right, that's 1974. Check in the description and watch my other 1974 video. Even if only to just compare how much better I'm getting at talking to the camera and what have you. And if you made it this far, you have to subscribe. I need the subscriptions because I'm tired of mowing grass for a living. I'm tired of serving food and drinks for a living. So please come to me, my children. I love you.